Dumped at the license counter, one sentence from the clerk, and I flash married. Sorry, my ex-boyfriend came back for me, no license today. The call ended. I became the downtown clerk's office running joke. The clerk couldn't bear the sight, pointing at the equally dazed girl beside me. Look, her ex-fiancé ran off with a richer woman, you two refugees might as well pair up. The girl stared at me for 10 seconds, then stood and stepped forward. License? I brought my household register. I nodded. Let's do it. 10 minutes later, I had a wife. The cold glass of the clerk's office doors reflected my numb face. The red marriage certificate in my hand felt like a branding iron. The woman beside me, Sophie, was my brand new wife. An hour ago we'd been perfect strangers. The air congealed, the awkwardness could be carved with a knife. People streamed past, their whispers like fine needles jabbing my skin. I felt every stare, sympathy, ridicule, curiosity. The second time, Chloe had phoned me into a total fool at the clerk's door twice. A hollow had opened in my chest, even pain couldn't find a foothold. Let's get something to eat. My voice came out raspy, sandpaper on bone. She, Sophie, lifted her head, her clear eyes were filmed with gray. She gave a soft We walked into the nearest diner and sat opposite each other, silence a wall between us. The waiter's menus broke the hush. I ordered 2 dishes at random. I'm Ethan. I introduced myself again, as if that could make the farce real. Sophie, she murmured. The food arrived, neither of us touched our chopsticks. My ex-fiancé, 5 years, Sophie began, gaze fixed on her teacup. He picked a woman who could cut 20 years off his struggle. Her tone was flat, no tears, no hysterics, just facts. That calm hurt worse than wailing. I understood. Nothing kills like a dead heart. My girlfriend, Chloe, I picked up. This is the second time she bailed on license day, always for her ex-boyfriend. I laughed at myself, mouth stretching, yet no sound came. One traded love for money, the other for old flames. We two, today's brightest exhibits of heartbreak. What now? I asked. She shook her head, lost, no idea. The condo is his, I'm homeless, I have a 2-bedroom. The words leaped out, we both froze, the air turned delicate again. I rushed, cheeks burning, we could room together, temporarily. The word felt obscene beside our red booklet. Think of it as a breather for both of us. I added, don't worry, I'll take the guest room. Sophie studied me, a flicker of light returned to her eyes. She stayed silent so long I thought she'd refuse. Okay, she said at last. The meal tasted like sawdust. I took her back to my place. Mortgage still unpaid, but the only route I owned in this city. Compact, but spotless. She stood in the living room, looking around, shoulders finally loosening. You take the master suite, it has the balcony and better light. I wheeled her suitcase inside. Jordan, she said softly. Besides Jordan, we had nothing left to say. Night deepened. I lay in the cold guest room bed, eyes open to the ceiling. Everything felt like a grotesque dream. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Don't be mad. Once I sort things here I'll come back. You have to wait for me. That tone, imperious, a gift she expected me to receive. What did she take me for? A recycling bin parked forever at her curb? Nausea surged. I stared at the line, finger hovering. Scenes of past breakups and makeups flashed by. Every humiliating retreat, every lie I'd swallowed, now slapping me awake. I didn't answer. I simply, quietly, deleted her. WhatsApp, phone, everything. When I finished, the boulder on my chest felt cracked. Next morning the smell of food woke me. I stepped out to find Sophie in my oversized t-shirt, busy in the kitchen. Morning light poured over her like a filter. On the dining table sat 2 perfect breakfasts, creamy rice porridge and sunny-side-up eggs, golden yolks, emerald scallions, curling steam. You're up? She smiled over her shoulder. Wasn't sure what you like, so I kept it simple. Daily breakfast for me was usually a grabbed bun. A meal with actual smoke and fire felt luxurious. Jordan, I said, sitting. The porridge was fragrant, velvety. One mouthful and warmth spread to every limb. Yesterday's sense of universal abandonment thawed a little. You cook great, I said, meaning it. I used to cook a lot, she answered lightly. I could picture the used to, for someone else. We tacitly left yesterday buried. After eating I headed to work. Spare key, I said, placing the ring on the console. Stay as long as you need, job hunt at your own pace. She nodded, taking them. Okay. As I tied my shoes, she added, I don't have a job right now, rent might be late. Forget it, I cut in. Consider it a roommate welcome gift. I shut the door, her gaze still warming my back. At Hawthorne, the atmosphere was off. Colleagues huddled. When they saw me, they scattered, smothering grins. My buddy and coworker Derek yanked me aside. Bro, you okay? He asked, cautious. I'm fine, I said evenly. Chloe's insane, twice. How could she? Derek looked ready to fight the world. It's over. My calm surprised him. Just like that? Dude, the whole clerk's office was buzzing. Guy ditched twice. My fists clenched at my sides. Right, I'd become a punchline everyone knew. I got married, I said. Derek's jaw hit the floor. What? To who? Don't tell me you lost it? To a girl who got ditched too. I left it there and went to my cubicle. All day I felt scopes trained on me. I buried myself in spreadsheets, locking emotion underground. Evening, I dragged myself home. I opened the door and froze. Soft amber light glowed inside. The smell of dinner drifted out. Sophie appeared in an apron, spatula in hand. You're back, food's almost ready. I stared at her, then at the tidy, lived-in home. A hard knob in my chest quietly melted. Dinner was lavish. 3 dishes and homemade soup conjured from my sparse fridge. Did you empty the whole thing? I joked. She laughed, eyes curving. Your stock was pathetic. For the first time we sat like real family, talking. We talked about work, movies, the kind of small talk that doesn't matter. The mood stayed light. After dinner I volunteered to do the dishes. She stood beside me, drying. I used to do financial analysis, she said out of nowhere. I blinked, surprised. Saw the trading apps on your laptop, she added, tilting her head toward the study. If you don't mind, I could take a look. I didn't mind. I even felt a spark of anticipation. I brought the laptop out. She slid onto the stool and started typing. The concentration on her face was nothing like the woman who'd been humming in the kitchen 10 minutes earlier. This was calm, professional, wrapped in an aura of absolute control. For the first time I thought, my snap marriage wife might be way more than I bargained for. The quiet lasted exactly 2 days. On the 3rd afternoon my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but it refused to die. Ethan. Chloe's shrill voice speared the second I picked up. What the hell? You blocked me? The question was equal parts accusation and delusion. We're done, Chloe, I said evenly. Done? Since when? I told you to wait for me. She acted as if I'd cracked the world's dumbest joke. How dare you block me? The arrogance was so absurd it looped back around to funny. Chloe, I got married. Silence, then a screech loud enough to warp the speaker. You're lying. Trying to make me jealous? Not a lie. Fine. Enjoy your little game, just wait. The line slammed dead. I stood there squeezing the phone, a sour knot in my gut. I'd thought deleting her contact was the finish line. With Chloe, nothing ends until she says it ends. I didn't mention the call to Sophie, my history, my mess. Of course trouble RSVP'd anyway. That evening, as I reached my building, I spotted a familiar silhouette. Chloe, head-to-toe designer, face painted for a photo shoot, stood blocking the lobby like she owned the block. She saw me, heels clicking a war drum beat across the pavement. Ethan. So the rumor's true? Where's the stand-in? She folded her arms, a prize rooster sizing up a rival. This is my life now, stay out of it. I tried to step around. Her manicured claws latched onto my arm, nails gouging skin. Out? Until I sign off, you're on my leash, got it? You're the dog I whistle for. Neighbors were peeking through blinds, whispers floated like litter. My temper slid toward the red. Just then the lobby door hissed open. Sophie stepped out carrying a small trash bag, white cotton loungewear, hair twisted in a messy knot, not a speck of makeup, yet she glowed next to Chloe's armor. She noticed us, steps slowing. Chloe's gaze became twin X-rays, stripping Sophie thread by thread, the verdict written in a sneer. Oh, this is your upgrade? Chloe drawled. Ethan, standards dropping? You're scraping the bargain bin now? The words were sewage flung in Sophie's face. Fire shot up my spine, but before I could speak Sophie moved. She tossed the trash into the bin, wiped her hands, and walked up to us, eyes placid as deep water. A bargain bin upgrade still holds the legal title Mrs. Vance, she said, voice soft yet razor distinct. So, ex-girlfriend, any other pointers? Chloe's smirk cracked like cheap porcelain. She opened her mouth, but only a strangled squeak came out, her foundation blotching crimson. I stared at Sophie's slim, straight back, first time anyone had planted herself between me and the garbage Chloe liked to throw. My heart hammered against bone. You, Chloe finally found air, trembling. You think you matter? Ethan begged me to marry him for years. You're just a prop to spite me, past tense poison, meant to wound. Sophie didn't even grace her with a glance, instead she looked at me, a silent question. I answered by stepping forward, placing myself fully in front of her. I met Chloe's fury-twisted mask. We're nothing anymore, I enunciated each syllable. Don't ever come near my wife again. The word wife rang foreign and solid at the same time. Behind me Sophie shifted, the smallest sway. My fingers had circled her wrist without my noticing. Cool, soft skin. Ethan. Chloe exploded, fists hammering my chest. Liar. Bastard. You swore I was your forever. The tantrum looked pathetic now, reality TV absurd. I caught her wrists and walked her backward out the lobby doors. Security. I called toward the guard booth. The door swung shut, muffling the curses. Quiet crashed over us like cool rain. I turned to Sophie. Sorry, I muttered. Dragged you into my sewage. She shook her head, lips curving upward. You did okay back there, she said, slipping free. She strolled toward the elevator. The ghost of her pulse lingered on my palm. That night the air between us shifted, no longer simple roommates, something humming beneath. Later, Sophie was at her laptop. Dump those 3 stocks at open tomorrow, she said without turning. Why? They're still climbing. Short-term tops in. Greed will bite you. The certainty in her voice left no room for argument. Though puzzled, I trusted her. The confidence was magnetic. Next morning at work I checked the market. I sold where she'd flagged. Within 30 minutes the shares peaked, then nosedived so hard the chart looked like a cliff dive. Had I waited even half an hour I'd be bleeding red ink. Cold sweat slicked my back. This wasn't knows a bit about stocks. This was surgical foresight. Who exactly had I married? The question took root, sprouting fast. My stray rabbit might be wearing fur over fangs I hadn't yet seen. News of my lightning wedding finally ricocheted into my parents' orbit. Mom's first call nearly burst my eardrum. Ethan, have you lost your mind? You marry a stranger and don't even consult us. Do we matter at all? Dad's gravel voice followed. Casey, bring her home. This weekend. An order, not an invitation. I hung up, skull pounding. I'd known the reckoning would come. I'd hoped for more runway. When I told Sophie, she merely nodded. It's only right we visit. Her calm made me more nervous. That Saturday Sophie and I climbed the steps to my childhood house, arms loaded with carefully chosen gifts. The moment I stepped through the door I felt the barometric plunge. Mom was parked on the sofa, face set in concrete, while Dad chain-smoked beside her. Dad, Mom, this is Sophie, I managed, voice cracking. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Vance. Sophie smiled, polite but not servile. Mom answered with a nasal grunt, I sweeping Sophie like a TSA scanner. Where are you from? What do your parents do? Where are you employed? The barrage felt like a police interrogation. I'm local, Mrs. Vance. My parents run a small business, and I'm between jobs right now. Sophie's tone stayed graceful. The instant between jobs hit Mom's ears, her expression curdled. No job? So you're basically a vagrant? Her voice scaled an octave. Ethan, look what you've dragged in. No income, she's obviously after your condo, Mom. I cut in. Sophie isn't like that. What would you know? Some fox spirit has dazzled your brain. Mom slapped the coffee table and shot to her feet. At the dining table the air turned to lead. Mom never offered Sophie a civil look, needling her with every other sentence, probing her past, implying she was a gold digger sniffing around our family assets. Sophie kept smiling, answering with composure, but I caught the flicker of loneliness in her downcast eyes. My heart felt clamped in a vice. Then Mom's phone trilled. She glanced at the caller ID and answered right in front of us. Oh, Chloe, yes, Ethan brought that girl over. Plain looks, no job, you're still the reliable one. I had no clue how Chloe had swiped Mom's number or what poison she'd been dripping. But after Mom hung up, her gaze at Sophie slid from picky to pure disgust. Listen up, Ethan, I veto this marriage. Go divorce her tomorrow. Not happening. I stood, blood roaring in my ears. This is my life. Think you're grown? Screaming at your mother over some random woman? She's not random, she's my wife. We exploded into the loudest fight we'd had since my wedding. In the end, I yanked Sophie out and slammed the door behind us. The ride home was a tomb. I could feel Sophie's mood flatlining. Sorry, I said for the third time. She shook her head, watching the neon blur outside. If I'm causing you this much grief, she murmured, exhaustion lining her voice, we could always. My choice, my responsibility. I braked at the curb and turned to her. Streetlight spilled through the windshield, bathing her profile. A teardrop glinted at the corner of her eye. In that instant I knew one thing, I couldn't let her walk away. Back home, Sophie shut herself in the guest room and didn't come out for hours. I left her alone, she needed space. Familial pressure sat on my chest like a block of granite. The next few days a new project at Hawthorne slammed into a wall. The partner was a heavyweight investment firm whose delegate shredded our proposal like cheap napkins. The whole floor sulked, pulling consecutive all-nighters and vomiting up revisions. Every draft returned bloody. As lead analyst I carried the heaviest load. One night I hauled a foot-tall stack of files home for an all-nighter. I sat in the study staring at my laptop, brain totally empty. Sophie slipped in with a mug of warm milk. She glanced at the spreadsheets glowing on my screen. Your angle's backwards, she said casually. I blinked. Come again? They want long horizon stability and you're screaming short-term alpha. You're pitching past their strike zone. She'd only skimmed the deck yet had skewered the heart of the rejection. Plus, your risk model's got a hole, she added, tapping a chart. The stress test assumptions are Pollyanna, their quants will spot it in seconds. I gaped, speechless. Our entire team, dozens of analysts, hadn't clocked these flaws after days without sleep. So, what would you do? I heard myself ask. Instead of answering, she tore a sheet from my notepad and started sketching. Minutes later, a fresh framework sprawled across the paper, bold, elegant, bulletproof logic. I studied the draft, then her, emotions cartwheeling. That night, following her blueprint, I junked everything and rebuilt the model from zero. The deeper I dug, the more I marveled. Next morning, stomach knotted, I submitted the new deck. Conference room air tasted metallic as ever. The infamous Misley, the partner's 30-something attack dog, flipped pages with surgical slowness. Seconds stretched into mini eternities. Suddenly she looked up, the first non-sneer I'd seen from her in days. Whose work is this? She demanded. My boss instantly volunteered me. Misley studied me, dislike now alloyed with respect. Fresh angle, precise entry point, exactly what we asked for, she declared. The room exhaled as one. Deal signed. To celebrate, Hawthorne booked a victory gala that very night. My supervisor clapped my back raw, proclaiming me the office hero. I knew the real MVP was the woman heating soup back home. Halfway through the banquet, the private room doors swung wide. Our CEO strode in escorting a commanding middle-aged man. Everyone, meet Charles, chairman of Sterling Global, the partner's ultimate boss. We snapped to polite attention. Charles was industry royalty, a walking headline. He smiled benignly, gaze sweeping the table. When it landed on me, he paused. No, past me. But I had no one on either side. What was he staring at? Afterward, the CEO asked me to stay for tea with Charles. Flattered and terrified, I obeyed. Mid-chat my phone vibrated. Sophie, when are you coming back? I saved you some soup. Her gentle voice carried through the speaker. Charles froze, eyes fixing on my phone, brows knitting. Sorry, my wife, I apologized, then whispered, client tea, might be late. Okay, easy on the booze. I pocketed the cell. Charles stared. Your wife's name? Weird, but I answered, Sophie. Which Sophie? The spelling Sophie. Crash, his teacup hit the marble and disintegrated. He gaped at me, shock, excitement, dread all colliding in his eyes. Where is she? He stammered. 30 minutes later, I unlocked my front door with Charles looming behind me. Sophie, in an apron, was ladling soup in the kitchen. She turned at the sound. When she saw Charles, the smile vaporized from her face, replaced by a tangle of resignation, reproach, and hurt. And the titan of Sterling Global, eyes red, voice breaking, bowed to her as though she were royalty. Miss Sterling, why on earth are you putting yourself through this? My brain felt like a laptop that had just crashed, every process frozen. Miss Sterling? Suffering? I stared at the woman in the apron who had been simmering homemade soup for me, then at the group chairman who looked ready to cry. The whole world turned surreal. Sophie exhaled, untied her apron. Sam, what are you doing here? Her tone was level, but it carried the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Miss Sterling, it's me. Charles stepped forward, trembling. The chairman is frantic. You vanished without a word, and after all this time we thought you had. He couldn't finish. I'm fine. Sophie cut him off. I just wanted to live like an ordinary person for a while. As she said it, she looked at me. There was apology in her eyes. My mind went blank, as if a grenade had detonated inside it and shredded every thought. Charles finally noticed me. He glanced from me to Sophie, shock melting into understanding, then settling into something like awed respect. So this is the young master of the house? He asked cautiously. Young master. The title jolted me out of my petrified state. That night, Sophie invited Charles to leave. Only the two of us remained in the living room, the air thick with awkwardness. I'm sorry, Ethan. Sophie spoke first, head lowered like a kid caught lying. I never meant to deceive you. I sat on the couch, silent. I needed time to digest everything. The woman who'd looked as lost as I had outside the downtown clerk's office was actually the heiress of Sterling Global. Her so-called unemployment was an escape from home. Her knows a little finance could crush my entire department single-handedly. All the puzzle pieces snapped into place. I just wanted to test my ex-fiancé, she said softly. To see if he'd still love me if I weren't Sterling's daughter. The answer had disappointed her. That test was supposed to reveal human nature, instead it showed me betrayal. She lifted her gaze, eyes glistening. Running into you at the clerk's office was an accident. Marrying you was impulse, but these days with you, I've felt safe. You're kind, grounded, responsible. You were furious when your mother belittled me. You shielded me from Chloe without hesitation. Our beginning was absurd, a farce. Now, I want to treat this marriage seriously. She walked over and tilted her head up at me. Ethan, will you? Give me a chance, and give yourself one too. I stared into her eyes. The former gray hollowness had been replaced by clear resolve. My heart hammered. Insecurity, panic, shock, the sting of being lied to, everything tangled together. Yet the words that overrode them all were, I felt safe. And the unfeigned sincerity in her gaze. I stayed quiet for a long moment. Then I stood, reached out, and gently brushed the tears from the corner of her eye. You cook this well, I said. I can't seem to find a reason to divorce you. She blinked, then laughed through her tears. After that night, our relationship stepped onto a new stage. With the curtain ripped away, everything lay in the open. Sophie stopped hiding her brilliance. She became my personal consultant. Whether I wrestled with a work crisis or needed an investment roadmap, her advice was razor sharp. I, meanwhile, worked on accepting the fact that my wife was a bona fide mogul. But trouble doesn't vanish just because you're honest with each other. Chloe, after I threw her out, stayed quiet, for a bit. Then she found a new ally. Sophie's former ex-fiancé, Zachary. A man who'd traded love for a fatter portfolio and now wanted a refund. United by nostalgia and greed, the two forged a pact. One evening I left the office only to be intercepted by Zachary. He leaned against a flashy Porsche, decked in designer labels, every inch the peacock. You're Ethan, he drawled, looking down his nose. Something you need? I had no patience. He whipped out a check and flicked it in front of me. $1 million. Leave Sophie. I've seen your type, gold-digging opportunists. Take the money and vanish, stop polluting her life. Every syllable was a slap. Rage erupted in my chest. I studied his face, a mask of arrogance and stupidity. So in your book, I said coldly, Sophie's worth a measly $1 million? He froze. Let me clarify, you're unworthy of her. You were before, and you still are. You piece of, he snarled, swinging at me. I didn't duck. Old me might have swallowed the insult. But now Sophie stood behind me. I couldn't retreat. I sidestepped, then drove my fist hard into his face. Zachary howled, clutching his nose as he crumpled. It was the first time I'd ever punched anyone. No regrets. Almost simultaneously, Chloe launched her own assault. She flooded my company's group chats and our mutual Instagram circles with lies. Sophie was a homewrecker. I was a gigolo who'd dumped true love for a fortune. She embroidered the tale, splattering dirt everywhere. Overnight I became office gossip fodder. Pity morphed into sneers. I arrived home to find Sophie already informed. She sat on the sofa, phone to ear, expression glacial. Yes, dig into Zachary's company books, tax evasion, shell accounts, everything. I want the full report. And a woman named Chloe is spreading libel online. Have legal draft a cease and desist letter immediately. She orchestrated the counterstrike with calm precision. That commanding aura was irresistibly sexy. She hung up, spotted me, smiled. Home already? Does your hand hurt? She took my fingers, noticed the bruised knuckles, and blew on them gently. Not anymore, I said. My husband's learned to fight for me, she teased, warmth flickering in her voice. We exchanged a grin, our first battle side by side. No arguments, no panic, only absolute trust. We were no longer two rejects licking wounds. We were comrades in arms. Sophie moved fast. The next day, a dossier of Zachary's tax fraud landed on the auditor's desk. Day 2, Chloe received a blistering cease and desist from Sterling's legal team. Zachary's firm was slapped with an investigation, its cash flow seized, it toppled toward bankruptcy overnight. Chloe was fired for gross conduct damaging corporate reputation. Her slanders collapsed under the weight of hard power and became a joke. Colleagues who'd whispered behind my back executed instant U-turns. Derision became fawning. I ignored the fair-weather crowd. What I hadn't expected was an identical about-face from my parents. Apparently tipped off by news or relatives, they discovered Sophie's pedigree. Casey showed up at our door lugging gifts. My mother, formerly acid-tongued, clasped Sophie's hands, smile carving wrinkles across her face. Oh, Sophie, sweetheart, I was wrong before, blind as a bat, please don't hold it against me. She kept trilling Sophie until my skin crawled. Our Ethan landing you is the luckiest thing since winning the lottery. My dad chimed in, nodding furiously. Absolutely, absolutely. When's the wedding? We can't let Sophie feel shortchanged. Watching their faces swing from haughty to fawning left a sour taste in my mouth. Sophie handled it like a diplomat. No airs, no score settling. She accepted their apology with grace, accepted the gift basket, and countered with pricier vitamins. Through the whole performance she kept her smile gentle, her manners flawless. She gave my parents a soft landing and still kept her own borders intact. By the time they left they were singing their daughter-in-law's praises. After I shut the door I turned to her. Aren't you mad? I asked. Mad about what? She laughed lightly. Waste of energy. They're your parents. As long as they treat you well from now on, that's enough for me. Her generosity flooded me with warmth and respect. With my side pacified, Sophie announced it was time I met her father, Avery, chairman of Sterling Global. My heart rocketed into my throat. Meeting a father-in-law is rough, meeting one worth $10 billion is nuclear. He chose a private lakefront manor for the summit. In person Avery looked twice as formidable as his photo. He didn't throw money in my face or ask cliched questions. He simply handed me a folder. Inside, briefing for a live negotiation. 3 days. You represent Sterling. Close it. His eyes were raptor sharp. I don't care how, only that you do. I opened the file and almost whistled. A brutal cross-border acquisition, the kind veterans dread. Clearly, my entrance exam. For the next 72 hours I barely slept. I barricaded myself in the study, memorizing data, modeling scenarios until the numbers blurred. Sophie became my secret weapon. She never took over, but when I hit a wall she'd drop a line from the sidelines, laser precise every time. She materialized with coffee, midnight snacks, and, when caffeine failed, an encouraging hug that rebooted my pulse. With her watching my back I felt steadier than ever. On D-Day I walked into the conference room alone. Across the table waited their A-team, sharks in tailored suits. I harnessed one long breath, let Sophie's grin flash across my mind, and began. The talks were a trench fight, every inch cost blood. Then I remembered Sophie's offhand remark about a footnote in their cash flow statement. I drove the wedge through that flaw and flipped the power dynamic. 8 hours later they caved and initialed our term sheet. I'd done it. When I stumbled out, Avery was waiting in the corridor, face unreadable. Follow me. He led me onto the manor's balcony. My daughter, he said, eyes on the sunset, never wanted for anything, except freedom. When she hit her name and picked you, I was furious. Thought you were another Zachary. He pivoted, gaze boring into me, less blade, more assessment now. She says you gave her respect and peace. Today I saw your spine and your substance. You never flashed Sterling's flag, just your own competence, and earned their respect anyway. He paused, voice softening a notch. She chose you, not because you're a Midas, but because in a world chasing her for crumbs, you handed her a bowl of warm porridge and a safe place to land. He extended his hand. Take care of Sophie. I clasped it and nodded, the pact sealed. I had passed the final test. I'd won more than a deal, I'd gained a family. At last life leveled out. Zachary's firm imploded under the tax probe, debt swallowing him whole. Chloe fared worse, blacklisted for slander. She scavenged for gigs no resume would ever list. One weekend Sophie and I were window shopping when we spotted her outside a boutique, thrusting flyers at strangers. Stringy hair, faded uniform, exhaustion etched under her eyes. She saw us, Sophie tucked under my arm, radiant. My gaze lingered on my wife, soft with pride. Shock, jealousy, and finally raw regret flickered across Chloe's face. She spun away and slunk off, a stray dog in heels. We didn't follow, didn't gloat. The finest revenge was letting her watch the life she'd discarded bloom in someone else's hands, forever out of reach. Rumor has it Zachary chauffeurs the wealthy widow he once jilted, daily front row seats to the happiness he forfeited. Everyone who'd tried to wreck us met their fitting epilogue. Meanwhile our days unrolled like an indie film in slow motion, quiet, warm, honey-dipped. We were no longer the strangers who'd married on the clerk's office steps. We were home to each other, compass and anchor both. I funneled my savings and Sophie's savvy investments into the wedding she deserved. We picked a seaview lawn where the horizon smiled back at us. Sunlight poured like champagne. Sophie glided toward me in white satin, an angel deciding to vacation on earth. I took her hand and dropped to one knee. Sophie, I began, voice trembling like a string about to snap. Thank you for walking up to me that day at the clerk's office. While the world laughed, you stood in the line of fire beside me. Meeting you is the best accident fate ever staged. I love you. Tears slipped down her cheeks like stray diamonds. Laugh crying, she answered, Ethan, you're my North Star too. Under a sky full of cheers we kissed, salt wind seasoning the moment. That briny breeze? The taste of happiness. A story that opened with slapstick closed with two heartbeats sinking. Sincerity and kindness may run late, but they always punch in, something my wife, Sophie, taught me better than any textbook ever could. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If it moved you, hit like and share it with a friend. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time.